Greetings, one and all. Welcome to the second episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. I am one of your hosts, half of the hosts, Oddman Rush. Hello, how are we today? And our other host, Mr. Chris Gadsby, I should say, he's having some problems with Skype. So he's looking to get that sorted as quick as possible. As you can probably tell, this is a little bit of a disorganised episode today on the Oddman Rush YouTube channel. We've got all of the topics written out, but we have the problem that we're a little bit confused on everything that's going on, and we've kind of both rushed to get here. I've been looking at something to do with the podcast, a couple of things. I've been looking at getting some new background stuff done, so you guys have some interesting stuff to look at. And I've been also looking at maybe getting these podcasts on Spotify. I was thinking, should I tell you, should I not? Well, I have. So there you go. Surprise. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting these podcasts on Spotify so that you guys can watch them either on the Xbox, because you can snap the Spotify app on the Xbox One, and you can listen to them on the go. So I know quite a lot of you guys have said that you'd love to have the opportunity to listen to these podcasts on the go. So yeah, I will, I'm getting somewhere with that. I'm not quite there yet. I'll see what's going on. But anyway, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. Lots of stuff taking place so far in both the Elite League and the NHL. Lots of behind the scenes NHL news taking place recently, I must admit. A lot of stuff. I mean, we can start with the Elite League, but I'd rather like to wait until Chris gets here. It depends how long Chris is going to take, I guess, because I don't really want to start if he's going to take a billion years. Let me just bring up. I'm just making sure I've got everything relevant for today. So yeah, Icing on the Skate, second episode, and we're already disorganized. It's going great, isn't it, guys? It's going wonderfully. So if I just go to, what do I want? I want this one. Yeah, so I'm just getting up all the different stats. We'll go to the day before. Yep, there we go. Okay, so let me just run through the scores of this weekend, shall I? And then hopefully we can get Chris in for some top-notch commentary taking place about the Elite Ice Hockey League. So, the second official weekend of the Elite Ice Hockey League took place this last weekend, Saturday the 15th and Sunday the 16th of September. We had some regular season games, we had some Challenge Cup games, and we've got all sort of stuff to go through. So, the Cardiff Devils and the Nottingham Panthers played on Saturday the 15th of September. I'll do Saturday's games first. The Cardiff Devils beat the Nottingham Panthers 3-2. 3 goals in the third period. Managed to get the victory for the Cardiff Devils. Lots of penalties by the Panthers in the third period. Couldn't hold a lead to save their lives. But the Cardiff Devils, they played a very good game there down in Ice Arena, Wales. And they managed to get the 2 points, hand the Nottingham Panthers their first loss of the season. Then we had the Belfast Giants against the Glasgow Clan. And Belfast kept their 100% record with a 6-4 victory against Glasgow. Glasgow very much struggled early this season, or have struggled early this season. But their fortunes turn around a little bit tomorrow, or for the Sunday, you'll see. Then we had the Sheffield Steelers against the Manchester Storm, and the Manchester Storm managed to defeat the Sheffield Steelers 3-2 in a penalty shootout, or in penalty shots, as most other places call it, you know. So the Sheffield Steelers still very much struggling early on in the Elite Ice Hockey League season. I think they've only got 1 win on the season so far. That's against MK, the team that beat them the day before. So very interesting situation there in Sheffield. And there's been a few moves that have been made in Sheffield to try and rectify this slow start. We'll get into them, or more into them, more in depth in a little while. Then we had the Milton Keynes Lightning against the Coventry Blaze. And the Milton Keynes Lightning picked up another win with a 4-2 victory against the Blaze. The Blaze having a very, very slow start to the season. They managed to get a victory against Guildford, but other than that, they've struggled early out of the gate, just like Sheffield. But it's more expected from a team like Coventry at this moment in time, you know. And then lastly, for Saturday the 15th of September, we had the Dundee Stars and the Fife Flyers, with the Dundee Stars taking the victory 3-1 over the Fife Flyers. So we had all 3 Scottish teams in action. We had, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So yeah, almost all of the teams in action. I think the Guildford Flames were the only team that weren't playing that on the Wednesday. So fair play to them. So we had Cardiff getting their first win of the season in their first game. Of course, they've been playing in the Champions Hockey League earlier before that. Belfast keeping that undefeated season. Manchester picking up a win. I believe it was a Challenge Cup game between those two. Milton Keynes picking up another win on the season. And Dundee getting a victory. Then we move to Sunday, the 16th of September. We'll have a quick chat with Chris once he turns up, if his laptop decides to work. So we had a game between the Nottingham Panthers and the Coventry Blaze, and the score for that was a victory for the Nottingham Panthers in a shootout, 5-4. They went 1-0 up, 2-1 up, 3-2 up, 4-2 up, and then Coventry still managed to tie the game. The Nottingham Panthers, their big story this weekend was being unable to hold leads for sustained periods of time. So that didn't go so well for the Nottingham Panthers. However, they managed to hold on and get the victory against the Coventry Blaze. So the Blaze managed to get a point from that game, but they're still very much struggling early out of the gate. Then the Glasgow Clan played the Manchester Storm, and Glasgow managed to get the win against Manchester for their first win of the 18-19 season with a score of 4-2, favouring the Glasgow Clan. Then the Guildford Flames went to Sheffield to play a league game, and the Guildford Flames actually did a very good job against Sheffield. They won by a score of 5-1. It was 5-0 before the Steelers broke the shutout. Guildford playing some fantastic hockey early on this season. Very much my dark horse team in this league, and I think most of you know that from last week's episode. So I'm quite impressed with Guildford. They're carrying on their good form from last season. They just need to keep it going, and they could actually make waves in this league. Then the Dundee Stars and the Fife Flyers played once again. It was a home and home, and Dundee won again, but this time to the score of 3-2. So Dundee scoring 3 goals in both in each of the games. Fife scoring 3 goals over the entire weekend. So as you can imagine, Dundee doing very well so far against some of their Scottish counterparts. And then the last game, we had the first game shown on Free Sports, the affiliate channel, or the sister channel as they call it, of Premier Sports. The first Elite League game to be showed for the 18-19 season of their 1 game a week, or 1 game every other week. It's 1 game a week, isn't it? I don't know. And the Cardiff Devils managed to defeat the Milton Keynes Lightning in a Challenge Cup game by a huge blowout score of 9-1. Wow, 6 goals in the first period, and the other 3 coming in the second. So they almost hit double digits. I think they should have hit double digits. Like, go for 10. If you've scored 9, just go for 10, you know. But the Cardiff Devils, it was their first proper Challenge Cup game, I believe, since after the CHL. And yeah, it was a fantastic game. Patrick Colleen of the Milton Keynes Lightning not really getting much of a chance or much help in front of him, as they managed to pot 9 goals past him. Some very good puck movement by the Cardiff Devils during that game. It was a very good effort there for the Cardiff Devils, and I think that shows in the score by a score of 9-1. So those are all the scores that have taken place so far in the league, and if I just bring up the standings, then we can have a quick chat about the standings. So, for the Challenge Cup, we'll do the Challenge Cup first. So, Challenge Cup Group A, Nottingham and Manchester have both played 1 game and have both won 1 game with 2 points. So they have 2 points, 1 victory for Nottingham and Manchester. And Sheffield have played 2 games, and they've lost 1 in regulation and lost 1 in overtime. So they are on 1 point. So all 3 teams in Challenge Cup Group A have a point, but it's 2 points to Nottingham and Manchester with 1 game in hand on Sheffield, and Sheffield with 1 point. So a very weak start to the season for the Sheffield Steelers. That's one of our big talking points for this podcast later on, after we've gone through all this stuff, and hopefully once Chris decides to turn up. Then Group B, the Challenge Cup. We have Belfast in the lead, undefeated, 4 wins in 4 games, 8 points for them. Dundee, they've played 5 games. They have won 3 games and lost 2, so they have 6 points. 3-2-0 is their record. The Fife Flyers are then in 3rd place. They have 1 victory, 2 losses, and 1 overtime loss in 4 different Challenge Cup games. Then the Glasgow Clan are at the bottom of their Challenge Cup group. No wins, 2 losses, and an overtime loss, excuse me, for 1 point in 3 games. So it's a pretty rough score there for the Glasgow Clan. They've had a pretty weak start to the season. There's a couple of teams that would be expecting better seasons, especially Sheffield and especially Glasgow. Those were 2 teams that were hoping to try and earn some silverware this season. They've got off to bad starts. Still plenty of time. However, I mean, you've already had 2 weeks up. Then, Challenge Cup Group C, the final Challenge Cup group. Cardiff are in the lead, having won their only game in the Challenge Cup so far. But all the teams are on 2 points in the Group C Challenge Cup. Guildford are second with a win and a loss in 2 games. Coventry a win and 2 losses in 3 games, and Milton Keynes a win and a loss in 2 games also. So there you go. So it's 2 points apiece for every single team in Challenge Cup Group C. 2 points for Nottingham and Manchester, 1 for Sheffield, then 8 for Belfast, 6 for Dundee, 3 for Fife, and 1 for Glasgow. So let's take a look at the Elite League standings as they stand currently at the end of week 2. So the Nottingham Panthers are currently in the lead of the Elite Ice Hockey League. They have played as many games as Sheffield. They are the 2 teams that have played the most games out of any team so far. So Nottingham have a record of 3 wins and 1 loss to give them 6 points in 4 games. Sheffield have 2 wins and 2 losses for 4 points. Guildford, Glasgow, Cardiff are all up in 3rd place with 1 game played, 1 win. So Guildford, Glasgow and Cardiff all on 2 points. Milton Keynes is also on 2 points, but they've played 2 games and lost 1 and won 1. So they're on 2 points. They're technically tied 3rd, but I'd say they're 4th. Then 5th, we have tied Coventry and Fife for getting overtime or shootout losses in their only game played so far. Then Belfast and Dundee are after them with having not played any league games so far. And Manchester is right at the bottom, having lost every single league game they've played. 3 games played, 3 losses for the Manchester Storm. So they've had a pretty rough time of it so far. They've allowed 6 more goals than they've scored, and they've had 88 penalty minutes. So that's not very good so far for the Manchester side. However, I think that's good. We're starting to see some sort of shape come to the Elite League standings so far. It's still very close, of course. There's some teams that still haven't played games. Most of the teams, over half the teams, have either played 1 or no games currently in the league. So once we hit Christmas, I think we'll start to get a much better idea of where everybody is. They've got the conference standings as well, but I really don't care about that, if I'm honest. So yes, so that is the Elite League standings. We've got a few pieces of news regarding the Elite League that we could talk about. Chris, how much longer are you going to be, mate? I can only talk constantly for so long. So we've got a few pieces of news. The most recent piece of news, which was announced a couple of hours before we decided to start streaming, about 4 hours ago. The Rupert brothers are set to leave the Sheffield Steelers. So this is an article on the Elite League website, and it reads as follows. Sheffield Steelers have confirmed that brothers Matt and Ryan Rupert have left the club with immediate effect. The twin brothers, who joined the Steelers from the East Coast Hockey League's Indy Fuel in August, were held pointless in their 4 Elite League games for the South Yorkshire side. Ryan Rupert also failed to register a point in 2 Challenge Cup games for the club, though Matt Rupert did pick up an assist during Saturday's 3-2 shootout loss to the Manchester Storm at the Fly DSA Arena. The Steelers are 2-2-0 in the Elite League and 0-2-0 in the Challenge Cup so far this season, following a summer of change which saw head coach Paul Thompson bring in a number of new players. An announcement regarding replacements for the Rupert brothers is expected in due course. So, the Rupert brothers, they were brought in to kind of add a 1-2 punch to the Sheffield Steelers side. They were brought in to try and help with their goal scoring, maybe add some more firepower to the team. Unfortunately, they haven't really worked out so well. In fairness, a very small sample size. But that said, they have played 6 games with the team, and the team's only won 2 games out of 6, which isn't a very good start for the Sheffield Steelers at all. They're, of course, missing Robert Dowd due to injury, which is a huge blow to the team. But it was decided that the Sheffield Steelers management thought that Matt and Ryan Rupert were expendable in this scenario, so they decided to get rid of them. It's an interesting situation, I find. I'm not sure. Sorry, there's a fly near me. I just really want to kill it. Wait, one sec. I've got it. Come here. I think I missed it. Anyway, so yeah, I'm getting there, I think. Okay, Chris is on the way. He's on the way. So, yes, what was I talking about? Matt, Ryan, Rupert, yeah, it's a shame that they've had to leave so early. I don't think they got a fair shake. However, I've seen a lot of Sheffield Steelers fans. A lot of them want Coach Paul Thompson, or Tomo as he's more often referred to. They're kind of having enough of him, and they're kind of seeing that he's not making enough changes in order to improve the team, especially because they lost so many players, which is very interesting. It's very interesting to see a team that's actually been quite successful. The Sheffield Steelers are one of the most successful Elite League teams out there. It's very interesting to see that so many players either wanted to leave or weren't re-signed. I think there were some players that left because they didn't want to be part of the Steelers organization anymore, which is fine. But there were also some players that I think may have wanted to re-sign, but they weren't given the opportunity, which sucks. But they might have been the guys that could have made the difference in these last few games. It's a very big difference. It kind of looks like the Steelers are going through a bit of a rebuild if this was an NHL team. But a lot of fans are saying that Tomo is going to start throwing players under the bus because supposedly this is what he does every season. This is just hearsay, absolute hearsay. A lot of Steelers fans are annoyed. They want Tomo to leave. Apparently he's the problem. Whether you agree with that or not, I mean, that's up to you. But yeah, so it's been a very, very interesting situation in Sheffield. There's been some rumours that Tomo might leave the Sheffield Steelers at the end of the season. One person has mentioned that to me. I'm not sure whether that's just hearsay at the moment or whether that's actually true. I guess we'll find out, I think is the way to put that. We'll have to see what happens with that scenario and see if I think we need to see who the Sheffield Steelers replace them with. I could imagine the Rupert brothers perhaps getting picked up by another team in the league. Maybe one of them stays here, one of them goes. Although I do kind of feel like these two are a package deal. If you want one, you have to take the other. Which is fine, because, I mean, they're twin brothers. Like, they essentially do... I can imagine they do everything together. But it's very interesting to see what's going on here with the Rupert brothers. I guess we'll have to see. I mean, there's not really much else I can say on that, is there? I guess we'll have to see if this makes any sort of difference to the Sheffield Steelers at all. Because I'm kind of getting the feeling that it's not... Hello? Oh, who's this? Oh, Chris has decided to turn up. How nice. Oh, hi, Chris. How's it going? Oh, wow. So Chris has decided to turn up. That's nice of him, isn't it? Let me just sort out his webcam while he's here. Is the internet connection bad? The internet connection looks very bad. Chris, what's going... Oh, there you go. There he is. Hello,
Am I
Chris.
here?
How are you, bud?
Yeah, there's a reason I turn up to Lions commentaries 2 hours early to set up.
How you doing, man?
You wouldn't. I've actually felt less tired after a day at work.
So, yeah, Chris is back, everyone.
Hello.
He decided to turn up to the stream, which is very nice of him.
Yeah, only 25 minutes late. That's fine.
You know what happens. So, Chris,
Hello.
thoughts on anything that I've talked about so far? Feel free.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to all of it, so it's all fine. Yeah, Oliver, I'm not even on BT Broadband. Right, so yeah, Panthers. Well, that's the unbeaten season gone, so there's no point now. May as well just wait till next year, haven't we? I think. Well, I couldn't stop laughing at Sheffield last night.
You're so considerate.
No, Ben, I didn't watch the TV game because I was driving back from Cardiff at the time.
I watched 2 periods of it. I watched the 2 periods where all the goals were scored, and yeah, it was good. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. Past that, I mean, it'd been a decent weekend, really.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, Manchester have played very well. Belfast obviously had a good weekend. Cardiff, if anyone's watching the Elite League for the first time, that wasn't the greatest of first games to show a competitive league.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was thinking that as it went on. I was kind of like, oh, this isn't showcasing the sport very well. And I love how, like, all the commentators had said, through, like, especially in the EIHL preview show, like, the two of them. Oh, what are their names again? Paul Adey and what's his name?
Aaron Murphy.
That's it, Aaron Murphy. I did know that. I don't know why I forgot it in that split second. I love how they both said, "Oh well, the league's a lot more competitive now. There's going to be less blowout games and more 1 or 2 goal games." Then we get
first televised game 9-1.
Yeah, first bloody live game that's shown. It's a freaking 9-1 victory.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, no, it's been a decent Elite League weekend, depending obviously on who you support. I mean, Panthers. When I went to the game against Sheffield in that Challenge Cup game, they had difficulty staying out of the box, and it's hurt them this time.
Yep, I mean against the twice reigning Elite League champions, not the best idea.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is the one thing I didn't like about the 9-1 game, the Cardiff Milton Keynes game. I don't like the fact that Andrew Lord decided to bring out Thomas Murdy for the second period. Is it just me that finds that a little bit disrespectful?
Like I say, I've seen nothing of it. What was the score at the end of the first?
So it was 6-0 at the end of the first period. Yeah, no, it was that bad. It was 6-0 at the end. No, sorry, 6-1. Excuse me. It was 6-1 at the end of the first, and then it went 9-1 at the end of the second, and I don't think there were any goals scored in the third. But I mean, it was 6-1 at the end of the first period. Ben Bounds was in net for the first period. Then they decide to bring Murdy in for the second period. I just found that a little bit disrespectful, really.
No, I don't think so. I think that especially this early in the season, if it's 6-1 at the end of the first and you're pretty sure you're going to win, you're going to not risk Bounds getting an injury, especially if he's already lost his shutout.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of like... I just think, like, the opposing team deserve better than that. I just think they're essentially slapping Milton Keynes in the face. They're already 5 goals down. You don't need to, like, rub it in anymore. Like, that's something I'd imagine the Steelers to do. And then everybody in the league would be like, that's disgusting. Like, if the Steelers did that, everybody would be really upset, I bet.
Oh, who's trying to trade on Fantasy League?
I had so many trade offers on my Fantasy League last night for Essa bloody Lindell. I had, like, one guy offer me, like, 5 different players. We will get onto that later with the Fantasy Sports. Because for those of you who are unaware, we did our live draft yesterday. And
Oliver, you're not having Pasternak. He was my first round pick. Go away.
So the funny thing was, for those of you who didn't know, the draft finished at about 11:30 British time.
Yeah.
So
at 10:30, I just put it on auto and went to sleep.
Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah, half of it was being autoed by the end of it. I mean, like, I got to make some decent picks, so I won't complain. I mean, half of you picked players that have now retired, so go for it, like, by all means.
I think that was the auto pick, to be honest, because I picked a guy. Well, the auto pick picked a guy for me that's been placed on waivers.
Which one was that?
I can't remember off the top of my head. It was one. It was like my round 15, and he got put on waivers. And I looked on the news the next morning. I was just like, why is he got put on waivers 4 weeks ago? Like, why is he even an option?
Well, I mean, it is pre-season, so he'll probably be on the training camp roster. So you might be able to crack the roster from there. But so we'll talk about fantasy sports in a lot more detail later. The Rupert brothers, Chris, what are your thoughts?
It's another blow to Sheffield, who were already struggling.
That's a fair comment. Yep.
It's, I don't know, no doubt that Sims will, spin it into, I don't know, it'll probably be Panther's fault or something. But I mean, obviously, if it's not going well for them, and obviously something's not there right, then they've gone. But yeah, it just doesn't help Sheffield at all.
Oh, like I said earlier, they've won 2 games out of 6 so far. So they're obviously off to a very slow start. So, yeah, some sort of change. I feel like it was quite a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like they panicked and went, oh, we need to do something, or the fans are going to get really annoyed at us. Let's get rid of these 2, you know? And, like, they haven't gotten rid of one player. Like, one player is easier to replace. They're now missing 2 import spots on their roster, which I don't think is a very good idea at all.
No, I'm just having to get the talk. I mean, I'll be honest that being away all weekend, I've not really been keeping up to date too much. So,
that's why I'm here.
I know that's why you're here. I mean, the topics you sent me earlier, should the Steelers hit the panic button after a poor opening 2 weeks?
Yes, that's a question that I decided to ask. And I think, and I wrote that before the Rupert brothers got released, and I think they have hit the panic button. You know, like, I think that's exactly what they've done. They're freaking out right now.
I think, yeah, especially if the rest of the games in September, whereas there's another 2 weekends in September. If they don't go well, then the massive panic button is going to be hit. It's going to be that big red one that like Trump claims he has in the White House.
So I have a question regarding the Steelers for you, and I'm not doing all this stuff to just like take a dump on the Steelers. It's because they're an interesting topic at the moment. How long, if they keep this sort of trend up, will it take for Tomo to get fired? Because I feel like it's a big topic of conversation within Steelers fans.
Yeah, you can tell they're reminding me of football fans at the minute that like a few results don't go their way and they're calling for the head.
Yeah. In fairness, Panthers fans were like that last season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's going to see where they are. Maybe I don't know, maybe end of November going up to Christmas. Maybe they won't leave it that long because Christmas is always busy.
See, I have the viewpoint of who are they going to replace him with halfway through the season?
Well,
I think that's the bigger problem than when are they going to get rid of him. I would imagine that if they go like 5-15-0 up until Christmas or however many games they play before Christmas, they'll be like, yeah, okay, we can get rid of Tomo, that's fine. But the problem is, who do we then hire?
No. No, I'm not doing that trade either.
Chris, focus, please.
I'm sorry, my phone keeps going off. The thing is with the Elite League, because there's no risk of them getting relegated and losing a ton of money by dropping down a division, then there's no, it's not like they're going to lose thousands and thousands and in TV rights and all the rest of it if they don't win a trophy this season
true.
And all the rest of it. So I think that, yeah, I mean, I can see them having the season out and then maybe they'll review it if they're not going to win any trophies, but
I think they'll probably... if they do have an awful season, or if they're playing awfully up until Christmas or New Year or something... Oh, get off me, fly. This fly is really pissing me off. I don't know where it's coming from. He's just
I was gonna do tonight's podcast from the conservatory rather than my room, and then there was a really annoying fly in there that I thought would just mess up the microphone. So
you didn't get broken into?
I haven't yet.
We just have like a counter at the bottom. Days since Chris has been broken into. The Sheffield Steelers, I think, are very interesting. I think they're a very big question mark going into the future weeks. I think another big question mark is the Belfast Giants. And the reason I say that, they're undefeated so far this season, but they haven't played any league games yet. I don't really count Challenge Cup group games as part of the record. They're undefeated. They're now the only undefeated team so far this season. But all of their games, 3 of their games have been against Dundee. So I don't really rate that as like a... I mean, if you play 3 games against any team out of your early 4, I wouldn't consider them all legitimate, So I think the Belfast Giants are still a very big question mark on this season.
Who would have?
I think we need to see who... Yeah, if you take a look at who they're playing, maybe, or whatever you're looking at, I think.
Yeah, I was still vaguely on the Steelers, but Belfast have got Nottingham at home on Wednesday.
Is that? Oh, of course, yeah, and that's. I thought that was next week.
No, it's the 19th. That's Wednesday, 2 days' time.
Because they're. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking.
I don't know.
No, sorry, that's me. Are they going to Belfast?
Yeah, Nottingham to Belfast.
I'm gonna watch that game. Game.
And then they're away at Fife on Saturday and at home to Fife on Sunday.
So they're playing a lot of Scottish teams very early.
Yeah. I mean, I was still looking at the Sheffield panic button because they've got Manchester away Saturday and then Cardiff at home Sunday.
Oh.
So
ouch.
I think... But yeah, Belfast... Yeah, I want to see some league games first before I jump in on that.
Yeah, I think they need a wider sample size before I can be like, yep, they're definitely contenders. I mean, Cardiff, they've played Nottingham and MK. I mean, I think it's the same with most teams, to be honest.
Why are Belfast then playing a double header against Dundee in the league as well?
Oh my god.
They're just in their own little league at the minute.
But yeah, I think I think it's interesting to see. of course, we're still very early days. We're only 2 weeks into the season, so there's still a lot of stuff to look at. Like most teams haven't even, like I said earlier, there's 2 teams that haven't even played any league games yet. So there's still quite a lot of stuff to look at. You know, there's still quite a lot of excuse me, quite a lot of basically, each team needs a bigger sample size. Because like Cardiff, for example, they've played what, Nottingham and MK, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's too early to dive into how teams are doing.
I think the team that's had the roughest schedule to begin the season is Milton Keynes. Yeah, they've had a rough one. They played Sheffield back to back. They played Cardiff and they played Coventry. I think I just said right. I'm gonna double check that. Let me double check that. I'm pretty sure.
But I mean, it's interesting. It's
1 second. I just want to double check that I'm getting this right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I said
MK have played Cardiff.
Yeah. It was Coventry. So they've played the Steelers back to back. Then they've played Coventry. Then they've played Cardiff. And I'm not surprised that the only game that, well, actually, they won a game against the Steelers, of course, who are struggling, but that's because you can't really take a game off anymore. There's no Edinburgh in the league. There's better players coming into the league as a whole. You can't really take a game off, you know?
No.
And MK made the Steelers pay for it in week 1. So I think the MK have had the roughest schedule. I think the team that's had the easiest schedule so far is the Belfast Giants. 3 games against Dundee, then a game against Glasgow. They haven't played any teams outside of Scotland so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to average out because everyone plays everyone the same number of times. So, I mean, I think, again, when we're talking about early season form, I think we've got to wait till the end of the month.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, the podcast on October the 1st will be a better one. See how the opening month was.
Yeah, that's good. You recommended something to me recently.
Did I?
You sent me that tweet, didn't you? So sum up your team's progress with a quick 5-word review. So I think we should do that about every single team in the league. I think is what.
Yeah,
I think that's what you suggested.
No, what I actually meant was you should tweet that on the Elite League thing to try and get more people to watch tonight.
Ah, right, okay. My bad.
I didn't mean it as a conversation topic.
Oh, well, I think it's quite a good conversation topic. And that's why I run the podcast. So
fine.
So 5 words to sum up each team in the league and their first 2 weeks. I think we'll go first 2 weeks, not just this week. So
okay.
I will throw the teams at you, and then I'll let you start with the first one, then I'll start the second one, just to make sure that we each get a chance to like have a little thought about what we're saying.
Okay, yeah. And in the chat, let us know for your team and tell us who your team is.
Let us know for your specific teams. That would be awesome. So, Mr. Chris Gadsby, your 5 words to sum up the first 2 weeks for the Belfast Giants.
Ooh, those aren't my first 2 words, by the way. Ooh and
Okay, that's fair.
I've got to get their results up again. Hang on.
Remember, they beat Dundee 3 times and then beat.
Oh, that's
Glasgow.
it. Yeah. I think I'm going to go for something along the lines of, can we play League now?
Yep, that's 5. I'm pretty sure. Can we play League? Yep, that's 5. I'll allow it. Can we play League now? I think that's good. Mine's going to be played Dundee too many times. There's mine
right.
With 5. Yeah, that's mine with 5. I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite happy with that. Then the Cardiff Devils as the next one. I'll go first on this one if you want. Suck in CHL. Good start. Okay, so for the Cardiff Devils, 5 words to sum up their start of the season. Remember, they beat Nottingham and they beat Milton Keynes.
I'm going to go for...
come on.
Back-to-back banner raised.
What's that?
Back to back, banner raised.
I like it. Okay, nice. Good. Next is the Nottingham Panthers. Go on, Chris. We're doing it by
Okay.
conference. I don't know if you'd noticed.
I was just reacting on what you said, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Unbeaten season gone. Move on.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I like that. That's probably my favourite one so far, actually. So for me, 5
No,
words.
I like Joe's can't keep out the box.
Yeah,
That's
true.
a good one.
So my 5 words. Really suck at holding leads.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Good. There we go. There we go. And then, of course, this is going to be the fun one for you, Chris. The Sheffield Steelers. Or would you like me to go? Oh, no, I need to go first for this one. Sorry, I'm breaking my own rules already.
Go on, then you go first.
The Sheffield Steelers. So 5 words to sum up the Sheffield Steelers start to the season. Lost so much. Cut twins.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. No.
There you go.
Okay. Sheffield. I'm so tempted to just go ha 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 Manchester.
Come on, be impartial.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm gonna do it with a question, which is time to hit panic button.
Ah, nice. That would have been a brilliant segue to the earlier conversation.
It would have been, wouldn't it? But,
let's move to Scotland. So, the Dundee Stars. You first.
Board of flights to Belfast.
I was going to make mine Belfast related as well. God damn it. Okay, mine's going to be a question. Can we play someone else?
Yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah, there you go. Next is the Fife Flyers. Okay, I'll start with this one.
It's you, yeah.
Lost some games. Bit boring. That's going to be my summary of the Flyers. They haven't really done anything to grab my attention recently, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to go with not living up to name. Because they're the Flyers, they should be flying, but they're not. So
I like it. Very nice. And then the Glasgow Clan. Go for it, Chris.
Okay. I'm gonna go with can we have Brayhead back?
I was. That's kind of along the same lines as my one. It was like, got new logo, still suck. Okay, and then the last conference to do is the Pattern Conference. So we start with the Coventry Blaze. I think I start with this one, don't I? Yeah, I start.
Yeah.
So the Coventry Blaze, I'm gonna go with a question. I'm gonna go with a question. Oh no, that doesn't actually count. Oh, I don't know. Essentially, it's along the lines of. Let's think. Won once, lost much more. That'll do.
Yeah. Okay. Coventry. I'm gonna go with glad you noticed us. Free Sports.
Yes, I love it. Brilliant. Perfect. And then we have the Guildford Flames. So you start.
Guildford Flames. Yeah. Okay. Weren't they like really leading Sheffield at one point?
Well, they beat Sheffield 5-1, didn't they?
Yeah, that was it. Okay.
I love how they all have to be about Sheffield.
No, I was just trying to remember the results.
They've played very well to start the season. I think they've only had one loss so far, and that was against Coventry.
Yeah, I'm going to go with we will be Dark Horses.
Oh, you went along the same lines as me. Still my Dark Horse team. There you go. Reference to yesterday's stream. Last week's stream. Then the Manchester Storm. Okay, I need to start with this one.
Yeah.
Okay. I know what I'm wanting to say. I just don't know if I can fit it in 5 words.
I know.
Um. Um. Uh. Uh. Um. I'm gonna. Okay, it's gonna be a little bit weird. Challenge Cup games all day. Get it? Because they've played 3 games in the league and they haven't won a single one.
Right, yeah. I see what
Okay,
you're saying, yeah.
Needed a
Yeah.
bit of explanation. It's not the best one, but there you go.
Yeah.
So, give it a go. Manchester Storm.
I'm going to go along the similar lines and
Okay.
go, can we only play cup?
Yeah, I was thinking something along that. But the problem was I couldn't take out the challenge bit. It just sounded weird to me. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's good.
Milton.
And last but not least, we have the Milton Keynes Lightning, and I have a feeling you're going to steal my one for this one.
Okay, I'm going to go with at least bridge toll going, because they're getting rid of the toll over the Severn Bridge. At least bridge toll
Okay.
going.
Okay, my one's going to be leave us off free sports, please. So, that was our little summarise the first 2 weeks for every team in 5 words.
I reckon we should do this every 2 weeks.
I think it's quite good, actually. Yeah, we could
It's
do it for,
really
like,
good.
sum up the first month. I think it's quite cool. Just like a little offhand thing. See, you were like, yeah, comment something on the thing. Now, we've made a new tradition here on the channel. That's
Fair.
what we do. We adapt on the fly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall we go across the pond?
Yes, let's do that. So, we're going to go from the EIHL stuff. Most of you probably know everything that's happened now. I think we've summarised everything except for like the leading scorers, but we're only like 4 games in, so there's not really much point doing that at the moment.
There's quite a lot of NHL stuff to talk about, but some of it we can rattle through.
Yes, lots of little nuggets of NHL stuff. So, I guess the question is, Chris, do you want to start with the big topic or do some of the smaller topics?
No, I think let's rattle through the smaller topics, then have a discussion on the big one.
Okay, so I think the first topic I would like to talk about is some captaincies. We've had some updates to some of the new captains for the upcoming 18-19 NHL season. And I think we should start with Justin Williams of the Carolina Hurricanes being named the Hurricanes captain. He has replaced Jordan Staal and Justin Falk as the co-captains for the team last season. I think one of them was the captain for home games. One of them was the captain for away games. I think it was really stupid, but they've rectified that problem by making Justin Williams the captain of the team. Of course, Justin Williams won the cup back with the Carolina Hurricanes. Think it was, what was the year they won it? I can't remember.
Wasn't it back in like 06 or something like that?
06, yeah, because I think the Ducks was 07, right? I think it was, it was 05, 06, something like that. But, yeah, we've got Justin Williams. So he has been announced as the captain for the Carolina Hurricanes. To me, that sounds like Justin Falk is definitely getting traded at some point this upcoming season. Whether that happens or not will be interesting to find out. I don't know if they've been giving the alternate A's. I'm not sure. Jeff Skinner was an alternate captain, I believe, Andy. And of course, he's now gone to Buffalo. So no problem there for Jeff Skinner. So yes, that's Justin Williams. That's the captain of the Hurricanes sorted. Then we've got the captain of the Coyotes. The Arizona Coyotes have announced their next captain after Shane Doan is now Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Yes, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, OEK, has been announced as the next captain for the Arizona Coyotes. The Swedish defenseman who has been essentially their only decent player for the last however many years. Of course, Arizona, not a very strong team at the moment, or what they've ever been most of the time. No offense, but, you know, it's true. So they get Ekman-Larsson as their captain. Shane Doan is very, very pleased with this appointment. There was I think it was during the announcement, like they had him, they did an interview with him and his voiceover was going while they were doing like a video of them patching on the captaincy, which was really nice actually. I thought that was a nice touch. Shane Doan is like, yep, he's the perfect person to be the captain for the team, which I think is pretty awesome. So Oliver Ekman-Larsson getting his chance to be captain of the Coyotes. He feels like he's ready for it. He's been waiting for it for quite a while. Because I don't think they've had a captain since Doan retired, right? Am I thinking about that right? I'm not sure.
I don't know, to be honest. Like I say, I've really not been following it so far.
Fair enough, fair enough. Then we had the Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs have announced their captaincy positions. However, they are not having a captain for the upcoming season. They've decided to carry on with 3 alternates. And I should have the list up here. I don't. But from memory, John Tavares has been given an A. Morgan Riley has been given an A. And somebody else has been given an A. I really need to look at this, don't I?
It's not going to make a difference. We'll still be terrible.
I don't think you will this season, though.
No.
The only interesting thing is, Austin Matthews wasn't given any letter on the front of his jersey, which I find very interesting. I've got to be honest. I was expecting Matthews to get an A this season, but apparently that's not the case. The 3 players, yeah, okay, just finding an article on it now. Morgan Riley is definitely one. Patrick Marleau, there you go, and John Tavares have all been named either the alternate captains of the team, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how the team do this season. I think it makes sense to make John Tavares make him a alternate captain after being the captain. Oh
my days, doorbell's going again.
Oh, you're going to be robbed again, are you? Oh, brilliant. Right, so I guess I have to carry on this until Chris gets back. It's the ideal time for him to do this, so bye, Chris. So yeah. So that's 3 of the captaincies done. I'll just turn this thing off until he gets back. And then the most recent one, which was announced about 3 hours before we started streaming. The Florida Panthers have announced their new captain, and that is Alexander Barkov. Yes, the Florida forward led the team in scoring last season with 78 points in 79 games. He had 27 goals, 51 assists. The 23-year-old he's been the alternate captain for home games last season, but he's been given the captaincy to go along with that. He's a very good defensive forward. He has an average ice time of 22 minutes a game, 1 second fewer than Anze Kopitar of the LA Kings. So he plays a lot of minutes. And he was the 2nd overall pick in the 2013 NHL draft. He has 249 points in 331 games. And yeah, I mean, he's only 23 years old, so that's plenty of time to do that. And Derek McKenzie, I don't know if he's still part of the team, but they essentially asked him if he'd be willing to let Barkov have it. Here he comes, he's back.
I'm back. You can't get peace in this house, can you?
Clearly not. So Alexander Barkov has been given the captaincy. I think it's 25 years since the Panthers became a franchise as well, which is pretty cool. So their 25th anniversary. And that's everything in terms of the captaincy stuff. There's a few other pieces of information we might want to talk about. Some transaction stuff, I guess. First of all, being Tyler Seguin has signed a contract extension. I believe it's 8 years for like $10 million, something like that. I probably should look at this, shouldn't I? I really should know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the 2 trades in the retirement to talk about.
Exactly. So we have a few other things going. Oh, and a suspension. We'll get onto the suspension.
Where was the suspension?
Forgot to
Did
leave
you not send me
list,
that?
But I'll I forgot to put it on the list. But I'll tell you all about it, folks. Don't worry.
That's fine.
So Tyler Seguin has signed an 8-year contract extension. It's worth $78.8 million. Runs through until the 2026-27 NHL season. He is expected to make, I think, just under $10 million a season. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think it's $9.8 million a season. I mean, he's been one of their best players ever since, if not their best player since he joined the team. He's 26 years old. He would have become a unrestricted free agent at the end of the season hadn't he re-signed. He could have taken the tactic like Stamkos and John Tavares did and wait until free agency hit and then decide. But nope, he was very clear that he wanted to stay in Vegas. He wanted that extra year on his contract. He's going to be 34 by the time that contract runs out. And if the salary cap keeps rising, that's a decent contract to have for an aging veteran, and provided he keeps playing very well. So, Dallas are one of my more favourite teams in the league. And I think keeping Tyler Seguin was very important to that team. They would have lost a very key cog in their machine if they lost Tyler Sagan. So I'm quite glad that they kept him. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, he's a very important part of that franchise. And like you say, in order to keep, I mean, if you think of Dallas players, you immediately think of Tyler.
Yeah.
So to keep him was definitely crucial for them, definitely.
Exactly, and it's one of those scenarios where the chemistry that he has with Jamie Benn from immediately when he got there, it just clicked. Those two
Yeah.
are such a 1-2 punch on that lineup. Then you add in Alexander Radulov, that's perfect. All they need is a little bit of help on the defense and Ben Bishop to stand up and be the solid goaltender we know he can be.
Yes, please do, Ben.
Yeah, and I think the Dallas Stars will do absolutely fine. So that was the only sort of major extension that took place.
Yep.
Then Henrik Zetterberg has announced that he has retired, the Detroit Red Wings captain. He's very high up in a lot of the lists on franchise points, goals, and stuff like that for the Detroit Red Wings. He's one of the best Red Wings to have ever played. He was a 7th round draft pick as well, I might add. So it just goes to show you can get picked in the 7th round and have a brilliant career. Liam Kirk. And so we have, unfortunately, and it's really sad the way that this retirement has come, though, because he's had a degenerative back disorder that's kind of plagued him for a little while now. But he's now at the point where he can't play to the standard that we've known Henrik Zetterberg to play at for the last 15 years or however long he's played. So unfortunately, Henrik Zetterberg was kind of forced into retirement. Luckily, he managed to win the Stanley Cup. He was second on the team in point scoring this last season behind Dylan Larkin. So he was still being a solid point producer throughout his career, even when he was having these problems with his back. So essentially, I just wish him the best, really. Like it really sucks to be in this scenario, but the good thing is he's known that it's time for him to call it a day. The worst thing is him having this issue to the point where it is at the moment, where he can't practice properly, he can't get on the ice properly, he can't skate properly, and then going, no, I need to keep going. Because he very much said in interviews that it was very important to him that he would only play if he could still play at that high level. And as you get older, you need to prepare for games even more. So the fact that he wasn't able to do that meant that he knew it was time for him to call it a day, which is good. Well, it isn't good, but it's good that he's realised that, and it's good that he's made the choice. He's kind of been forced into it, but he said, nope, I'm calling it a day. So that was a very interesting scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously he can tell that he's not going to play at the level that he needs to play at, and I think that he can now go knowing that he's gone at the right time. He's not like trying to hang on, break records, and actually hindering the team.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, I mean it's been a great career, but all good things must come to an end, and I think he'll find his role in coaching or in punditry somewhere.
Definitely. I mean, Steve Yzerman just stepped down as the GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning, so if they're looking for another Detroit player to go and take up that spot, Zetterberg is now available. They've already replaced a new GM. That was a bit of news. Steve Yzerman stepped down as the Tampa Bay Lightning general manager. He was fantastic for the Lightning as their general manager, without a doubt. One of the best GMs in the league. We usually talk about the worst GMs in the league on this channel, but Steve Yzerman, he was a very good negotiator for the Tampa Bay Lightning, especially with the New York Rangers. And he managed to get them to a Stanley Cup Finals. He's managed to make them one of the sort of ideal franchises in the league. They made them a real trendsetter for how to make teams nowadays. He would sign a lot of undrafted small players or draft smaller players and basically turn them into little mini Martin St. Louis, which is quite cool. So, Steve Yzerman, but the reason he decided to step down, just in case you were wondering, was because he wanted to be closer to his family, and he felt like he wasn't able to be with his family as much as he wanted to because he was busy running an NHL franchise and almost taking them to a Stanley Cup. So, understandable reasons, I think, as to why he would want to give it up. But wish him luck and hope he spends some more time with his family and finds what he wants.
Well, I mean, you've got to evaluate what's important in life, really. Oliver, no one was robbing me. One of Mum's friends was dropping off a birthday present.
Oh, there you go. So we have two more topics. One very big one. But this is the slightly smaller one, but still quite big. So a couple of weeks ago...
Did you cover Carlson while I was answering the door?
No. But don't spoil it.
Well, you said 2, and there was could see 3 other things on the list.
No, there aren't. I've already done all the captaincies. Oh, no, you're right. Talk about...
But I didn't know if we were leaving that because you were doing the other video on it.
Yeah, sorry. We are leaving that one, but there's another one I was thinking about.
Is there? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't worry.
I'll
explain. I'll explain.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm on your page now. Don't worry.
So, last week we talked about Mr. Nate Schmidt being suspended for player-enhancing substances. We both very much felt that it was a little bit unfair on Nate Schmidt. Maybe should have had a reduced suspension. Rather unfair the way that it happened. But then another suspension was handed out. We haven't even got to the ice yet for the 18-19 season, and already 2 people have been suspended for huge chunks of time. So, the NHL has decided to suspend Nashville Predators forward Austin Watson for 27 games due to domestic assault charges. So, I will read this. This is from People magazine. This isn't the one that I would have chosen, but it's the first one that I found. So, the NHL suspended Nashville Predators player Austin Watson for multiple games without pay, 27 games, after concluding an investigation into a domestic violence incident against his girlfriend in June, the league announced on Wednesday. Then Gary Bettman, this is from everyone's favourite commissioner, he said, and I quote, "I have determined that Nashville player Austin Watson engaged in a physical confrontation with his domestic partner. Today's ruling, while tailored to the specific facts of this case and the individuals involved, is necessary and consistent with the NHL's strongly held view that it cannot and will not tolerate this and similar types of conduct." So, Austin Watson will miss the entirety of the league's preseason and the first 27 games of the regular season, making him eligible to return to Nashville's game against the Buffalo Sabres on December 3rd, 2018. It's been told, according to ESPN, the NHL Players Association plans to file an appeal of the suspension. So details on the actual event itself. It was on June 16th that Watson was arrested by the Franklin Police Department on suspicion of assault after a witness called an officer to report Watson pushing his girlfriend at a gas station, as detailed by the Tennessean. Police noted that Watson's girlfriend, whom he shares a child with, I don't know why that's relevant, kind of is, had red marks on her chest. She reportedly told officers that the NHL player sometimes gets handsy with her, in inverted commas. Let's just see the rest of the article. The department did not immediately respond to this article's request for a comment. In July, the 26-year-old pleaded no contest to a domestic assault charge and received a 3-month probation, which included 26 weeks of a batterer intervention course and a treatment program for drugs and alcohol. Austin Watson was one of 4 Predators to participate in a public service campaign addressing domestic violence last season. Ooh. The messages were made as part of the YWCA's Amend Together program, which was initiated to educate men on how they can stop violence against women and children. In their video, Watson appeared with yellow tape over his mouth that made an X. While the original video was taken down, it can still be seen in other places. Oh, so this doesn't look very good, does it?
I think the short answer to that is no.
Especially that last bit. I didn't even realise that until I read this article. So he's literally done lots of campaigning for that sort of stuff. And then he's gone and done it. That's not good.
Yeah. I think from an ice hockey point of view...
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we've got to be really careful here because I've studied media law quite a bit.
Of course, yeah.
It's whether... Because it wasn't an incident in hockey, and it's for the American legal system to obviously work out what's going on.
It's a very tough scenario to kind of work your way around, really, isn't it? Because, like you've said, it technically didn't take place in the league, so you kind of wonder, from one perspective, like, why are the league getting involved? But then again, you don't want the person to go unpunished, and you don't want to get involved in the... I kind of get the feeling that he's been suspended this long so that the legal proceedings can take place without him being impacted by something on the ice. That kind of sounds like... That kind of sounds like what it is, right?
Yeah, that may well be the case. And of course, until those have happened, it's technically an active case, so you can't really discuss it.
Yeah.
So
although he has already been to court on it, I believe. I'm not sure. Because like they said, the event took place in June. So maybe the court case was this week. I don't know.
Don't know, but
Yeah.
I think we need to be sure on that and maybe come back to it next week.
Yeah, it's a very tough scenario. I get the feeling that this is all we're going to be told unless there's anything that changes in the appeal with
Yeah.
how many games he's being suspended for. It's a very tough scenario to be in. But, I mean, that's now 2 players before the start of the season, before pre-season, that have been suspended for at least a quarter of the season. That's pretty crazy. I mean, like, there's no Rafi Torreses anymore to just go and back-check people in the head and get a 40-game suspension, so it's kind of weird what's going on. So we'll kind of swiftly move on to the next piece of news. Jake Morrissey of the Winnipeg Jets, this is a very quick one, was announced a little while ago. The 23-year-old defenseman was a RFA, but he has signed a 2-year contract with the Winnipeg Jets worth an average annual value of $3.15 million a season. He had 26 points last year, his second full year in the NHL, and he missed 1 game. He's missed 1 game in those 2 seasons, so he's a very dependable player early in his career, and he's starting to put up points for the Winnipeg Jets. So a solid young depth defenseman who could rise up the top 4, maybe to the top 2 eventually if that's where he caps off at. And yeah, he's played quite well for them. He's got himself a 2-year contract extension. So we have one last huge piece of news, but before that, so for those of you who don't know, the preseason has started for the NHL. The New York Rangers play tonight, and I might take a bit of a gander at that game, see how my Rangers are looking with their new coach. It's the first game with the new coach, which is pretty cool. David Quinn from Boston University, Boston College, one of the two. Or, I don't know. Yeah, so there's been some preseason games taking place in China, which is a very interesting place for a North American sports league to go. Obviously, they're with the Shanghai Golden Star, no, the Kowloon Golden Star, sorry, of the Continental Hockey League. There is hockey taking place in Japan and China and in Asia. They're starting to be, the NHL and the KHL have started to see a very good potential market for hockey. So they've decided to capitalise on it with some preseason games taking place in China. Gary Bettman has also said that there's the chance for regular season games to be played in China in the future, probably next season onwards. And yeah, so it took place at 7:30 British time, 2:30 Eastern time in the morning. So that would have been, 11 o'clock Pacific in the night before? That's pretty crazy. It's not every day that I can wake up and see hockey on the TV. I was watching hockey at lunchtime. I was like, this is great. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on the NHL going to China, Chris?
It's been successful in other sports. In terms of there's NBA and NFL games over here.
Yep.
And there's been games elsewhere, so I see no reason why there can't be a regular season NHL game in China. I think that they would have to schedule it quite well because obviously it's a lot further to travel, so the teams would potentially need extra time to get over there and sort themselves out and what have you.
Yeah, they usually I think they travelled 5 days before they played.
Yeah, I mean, even though you're going to be flying eastwards, you're still crossing the date line, so you're going from one extreme to the other. You're gaining like 23 odd hours.
Well, yeah, they're quite literally flying across the world.
Yeah, so they would need extra time to adjust themselves to that because obviously 20 odd hours is a lot different to 3 hours.
Yeah.
So then they're going to need extra time to recover on the way there. They're then going to need extra time on the way back, which means that they're going to need a gap in the schedule, which means they're going to have to be squashed somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, then you've got to obviously think, is that fair on those teams and what have you? So there's a lot to sort out, but no, I'd like to see it happen.
I think the one thing I would say is I think the fact that the Kowloon Red Star, because I'm pretty sure they played in the Kowloon Red Stars rink, they're a KHL team. They're not a very good KHL team. Like, they've struggled very early this season. They had some problems last year as well. They're sort of a bottom half of the league sort of team. The one thing I did notice, I did watch some of the third period and I watched a bit of overtime as well. I watched overtime as well because I went to... it was the Boston Bruins and the Calgary Flames that played. Yeah, it was, and Boston won in the shootout, didn't they? Jake DeBrusque,
They
I think.
did. I didn't watch that bit because I went for a big fry up.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, no,
The interesting thing was, looking at the stands, there was a lot of people there. I was quite impressed with how many people were actually in the stands for that game. I was expecting it to be like 50%, 75% capacity. I think we were looking at more like 95%, 95% capacity. That place looked pretty packed out. So I'm quite impressed with that. There's another preseason game taking place there between Boston and Calgary this week, I believe. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday, I'm pretty sure. So it's a split squad situation. So half the Boston and Calgary prospects / players have stayed here. Half of them have gone to China to go and get the chance to play. And like they're going on a holiday to China, whilst quite a lot of those rookies are trying to fight for roster spots. So it's not exactly a holiday for them at all. They have done some fun stuff while they're over there, but they're making sure that they're training and doing a good job. So that's very interesting to see. Do I think we'll see any games in China? The only thing that would make sense, like going off what you were saying about booking the time for them to do that, is to do it during just before their bye week. Just have two teams that, because it's now in the collective bargaining agreement, I believe, that every team has to have 5 straight days where they don't play any games as like a bye week period that they can, like, I think the Players Association wanted to push it through because, I mean, it's an 82 game season, like it's a pretty rough season and there's a lot of wear and tear as it is. It just gives players an extra few days to try and rest up, heal some injuries. Maybe do it before the bye week, or do it directly after the bye week. Maybe have them travel during the bye week, play the game as their bye week ends, travel back, carry on. Like there are a few ways they could get around it, definitely. But like you said, it would mean that those teams might have to chuck a few more back-to-back games with some other opponents around the league, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but fans might get a little bit upset purely for the fact that they'll have a tired team for those situations.
So I think they've got to work it carefully, to be honest.
Yes, I agree. And then the last piece and the biggest piece, we've saved the best till last here, ladies and gentlemen, in the NHL. There was a very big trade announced this week.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest trades in a very long time, I would argue. So there was a trade that took place between the Ottawa Senators and the San Jose Sharks. The Ottawa Senators have traded Erik Karlsson, the best defenseman of his generation, to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for forward Chris Tierney, defenseman Dion DeMello, forward prospect Josh Norris, and forward prospect Rudolfs Balcers, as well as a first-round draft pick in either 2019 or 2020, and a second-round pick in 2019. If the Sharks miss the playoffs this season, that first round will be a 2019 pick. Otherwise, if they do make the playoffs this year, it's a 2020 first-round pick. In addition, there are also 2 conditional picks involved, which Elliot Friedman, I'm seeing his tweet on Twitter about it. So should the Sharks sign Karlsson to a contract extension, which they are planning on offering him an 8-year contract extension, Ottawa receives San Jose's second-round selection in 2021, which would upgrade to a first-round selection if San Jose reaches the Stanley Cup Finals in 2019. So the best case scenario is that the best case scenario is essentially for the Senators is that the Sharks make the playoffs, and they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Then the second conditional pick is if Karlsson is on an Eastern Conference roster during the 18-19 season, the Senators will receive an additional first-round pick from the Sharks no later than the year 2022. So this is a very interesting scenario here. So San Jose have given up quite a haul, but they've managed to do very well in this trade. I think the Sharks, considering they've got the best point-scoring defenseman of his generation, he's essentially the Bobby Orr of his generation. Like, he's done a fantastic job. That Doug Wilson has in getting Erik Karlsson. The interesting thing is that second conditional pick. If Karlsson is on an Eastern Conference roster during next season, the Senators will receive an additional first-round pick. So essentially, the conditional picks have basically said if the Sharks re-sign Karlsson, which they're wanting to with an 8-year contract extension, then Ottawa get another second-round pick. And if San Jose go to the finals, then that becomes a first-round pick. However, if they don't re-sign him, and instead they decide to trade him before the deadline to an Eastern Conference team, then the Senators get another first-round pick. So there's a lot of hoops that they'd have to jump through, but they've already guaranteed themselves a first and a second-round pick already. So that could be upgraded to 2 firsts and a second, provided the Sharks make the Stanley Cup Finals this season. And they re-sign Erik Karlsson to a contract extension. What do you think about this trade, Chris?
That's a lot of information.
There's a lot of stuff there. Yeah.
It is. I think that on the face of it, you would say that maybe Ottawa's won it because they've just got so much.
See, the problem
if some of it's not coming in for like 3 or 4 years, then you think San Jose's won it because they've got someone who they know are going to put up a lot of points.
See, that's the problem. This is the problem that I have from Ottawa's perspective. They gained a lot of pieces, but I don't think they gained any solid pieces.
No, and they don't come in for years.
Yeah, Christiani and Dylan DeMello are decent players. Like they're good players. Don't get me wrong, but they could have got a Logan Couture for Erik Karlsson. They could have got a Joe Pavelski for Erik Karlsson. They could have traded Joe Thornton away, who's on a 1-year contract, for an Erik Karlsson. Like, I think the problem is Eugene Melnyk, who's the owner of the Ottawa Senators. He's a very controversial figure at the moment because he's basically, from the perspective of quite a lot of Ottawa Senators fans, they basically feel like he's running the team out of the city. And there's probably a chance that the team will be relocated. Like, they made it 1 win away from the Stanley Cup Finals 2 seasons ago. They had to put like covers over loads of seats because they couldn't sell enough seats in Ottawa. They traded away Mike Hoffman because of the situation happening with Karlsson's wife and Hoffman's girlfriend. There's a lot of cyberbullying stuff going on there. So they decided to trade away Hoffman to be like, we need to cut this drama out immediately. There's a lot of speculation as to whether the team's going to move, and chances are they're going to. Then Eugene Melnyk comes out and is like, we're going through a rebuild now. We're going to rebuild this team and make sure we do it right. All of the fans are like, we don't need to rebuild the team. We've got some solid pieces here. We just need to add some more depth players and some solid players in each position. Like, they've got Karlsson. They signed Matt Duchene. He just needs to bounce back. They had Hoffman. They've gotten rid of him now. They had Stone. Like, they have some solid players on their roster. Are they a Stanley Cup contender? No. But are they a playoff contender? Yes, if they kept all of those pieces. However, they've just completely blitzed the entire roster. But the problem is he hasn't got anything decent out of it. The other team that did a very big blitzing of their roster this last season, and of course a team that I follow very closely, is the New York Rangers. However, the New York Rangers, I feel, did it right. These guys didn't. I feel the Ottawa Senators have done this really, really wrong. Christiani, he's a solid player. I think he's 23 years old. Like, he's a solid player, don't get me wrong. He's a good top 9 forward. Dylan DeMello, he's a good second, third pair defenseman. 2 forward prospects, one of which was a first-round pick, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. And a first and second round pick, maybe another second, maybe another first. Like, they got a lot of assets here, but I don't think they got good assets. And the fact that Erik Karlsson, a couple of days before the trade, he was going to an Ottawa Senators golf tournament, and he was going to support, I think, one of his other teammates that was holding a charity golf event. The fact that he said very emotionally, and he was holding back tears when he said this, he very much said, I didn't want to leave Ottawa. This wasn't my decision. Like, I'm pretty sure he's looking forward to going to San Jose. He's getting to play with the likes of Brent Burns, Vlasic, Thornton, Couture, Pavelski, Martin Jones. Like, he's playing with some very solid players there. And I definitely think San Jose are an immediate cup contender now. They had some pretty solid pieces to begin with, but adding Karlsson and Brent Burns are the 2 defensemen that have scored the most points for defensemen in the NHL since both of them joined the league. They're 1 and 2. Karlsson and Burns are 1 and 2. I just think this is such... I like the fact that Ottawa got so many pieces, but all it takes is for only one of them to actually work out, and it's worked in San Jose's favour. All it takes is for San Jose to win the Stanley Cup, and I think they've won this trade. Will they? I don't know. It's a tough league, and you can't really predict stuff like that very easily. But I just think, I feel so sorry for Ottawa Senators fans. They have really been put through the ringer this last little while. I just think it's unfair on them. I think this is the one player that they didn't want moved. This is the one player that they wanted re-signed. The captain of their team, he had a bit of an issue last season because he had surgery and he had a few problems. But Claude Giroux, like I said yesterday in the fantasy draft, Claude Giroux had the scenario where he had the surgery, played relatively badly that season, came back this year, had like a 90-point season. So, like, I don't understand why Carlson wouldn't have the same thing, being the fantastic defenseman he is. I just really sympathise for Senators fans. Carlson didn't want to go. He was forced into this, and the Senators fans are... So many fans are calling for this team, for Eugene Melnyk to be taken out. What do you think, Chris?
Well, thank you for bringing me in.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got all of the information out there, you know?
No, I mean, I think, as I said, there's a lot of different points in there. Again, there's a lot of picks, conditional picks, but they don't come in for years, some of them. Like, before 2022, well, that's 4 years away.
Yeah.
And I think that San Jose have definitely got the piece they need to become a team that's going to challenge now.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Whereas Ottawa have just been pushed back. So I think that...
Which is essentially what they've said they wanted to do. They said they wanted to go through a rebuild, the Ottawa Senators. I'm pretty sure they had a press conference about it the day before they traded Carlson. So this is in line with what they said they were going to do. So I'm glad that they've kind of gone, yeah, we're going to stick to this plan. However, they could have got so much more back for Erik Karlsson. So much more. In terms of, like, roster players.
Yeah, I don't think they've done particularly well there.
Because let's be honest, they got 2 forward prospects. They might never work out. Say if they don't work out, they're eliminated. They're gone.
So might the picks.
Yeah, exactly. So say if both prospects and all the picks don't work out, you've traded Erik Karlsson for Chris Tierney and Dylan DeMello.
Yeah, precisely.
Which is an awful trade. Which, of course, that's quite a pessimistic way to look at it from the Senators' perspective. But at the same time, draft picks are more likely than not to work out. You know, maybe not so much with first-round picks, and they've gone for the sort of the higher picks, the higher-end talent, which is good. Like, that's the smart thing to do. However, like, unless these other pieces get used as bargaining chips in other deals that they make to acquire other players, then yeah, say first-round pick in 2019, a second-round pick in 2019. The Senators, say if they draft some really awful players, say if they draft players that might have been good, but they just never end up going to the NHL, then you've given it up a top 9 defenseman and a top 4 defenseman at best. A top 9 forward and a top 4 defenseman at best for the best offensive scorer of his generation. Okay, bye, Chris. I just think it's ridiculous. I really don't like Eugene Melnyk. I don't think he's a very good... I can understand why Senators fans are so annoyed with Eugene Melnyk. He's made rumours about selling the team before, then he goes, no, we're not selling the team. It's just awful. Like, I really sympathise for them. Andy has just mentioned that Darnell Nurse might have been signed to a contract extension.
Okay.
I need to see this, because he obviously hasn't been able to take part in training camp, because you can't take part in training camp if you don't have a contract. Let me just see if I can find this. Thank you for letting me know, Andy, if this is true. Yes, okay, so, Darnell, right, okay, so there's an article that I've seen 40 minutes ago. Let me just double check what this says. The Edmonton Journal. Okay, so it looks like Darnell Nurse has signed a 2-year contract with the Edmonton Oilers with an average annual value of $3.2 million, which is pretty impressive, actually. Darnell Nurse, yep, he signed with the Oilers. They really need Darnell Nurse. He's probably one of the best defensemen they've had for a long time. He's currently on their second pair defense. He's the third highest earning... wow, okay, 1, 2... Wow, he's really not earning that much, to be fair, compared to some of the other defensemen they've got on their roster. Chris Russell's earning more than Darnell Nurse. He's just known as a guy that just blocks shots, and that's about it. So, that's a very, very interesting scenario there. Thank you for letting us know on that, Andy. Do appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, cheers,
so
Andy.
Darnell Nurse has been signed. So the only other big restricted free agent that hasn't signed yet is William Nylander. William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs still hasn't signed a contract. It'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Come on, Toronto, sort it out.
Because if they don't sign him by December, he can't play this year in the NHL. So I will imagine they'll get a deal sorted out before the season starts. But then the problem is Nylander might have a bit of a slow start to the season because he wouldn't have been to training camp. I think he can go to training camp. He just can't take part in any of the scrimmages or anything because he's technically not a signed player for the team. He's technically not on the roster. So they need to figure out what they're doing with that. So, yeah, it's a very interesting scenario. So that is the NHL summed up, I think. So some interesting stuff taking place, though, right?
Yeah, interesting. I'm looking forward to the season starting. Yes. October 3rd.
Excuse me, October 3rd. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, actually, from Andy. So this is the last year of the current collective bargaining agreement. The last one was signed during the 2012/13 NHL season. As we know, it took a while for that CBA to get signed, which meant that the season was limited to just 48 games, as opposed to the 82-game regular season. So the question is, will there be a lockout? I think that's a good question that we could ask for. We could save for next episode. I think that's
I need to look into it. Yeah,
I think that's a really good question, Andy. Thank you for that question. That's an awesome question, and I think we want to give that topic its due. So we're gonna take a look at that next episode. I did see an article written about it recently, so I think it was by the Hockey News. So yeah, we'll definitely look into that. That sounds like a really fascinating topic, to be honest. With the lockout, I hope they don't have another lockout, and I hope it's not an 04-05 lockout. Because a year without NHL hockey would actually make me cry. So now we have we're coming towards the end of the podcast. We've got a few more things to talk about.
Should we do?
Yeah, go for it.
Should we do the fantasy purely because I know nothing about the KHL and may as well drop out for that bit?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah. So fantasy hockey. For those of you who are unaware, yesterday we did our fantasy hockey draft. For the Odd Men Out Hockey League, or the OMOHL. We started off the stream that I did 3.5 hours yesterday. I mean, everyone else was going to sleep. I stuck through it. I was there. But we started off that with 10 players before the draft was set to begin, and we managed to get the number up to 17. So I'm really happy that we had 17 out of a possible 20 players available in the draft. And yeah, I told it to go random for the beginning of the draft, like randomize all the picks, but it decided to give me the first overall pick. That wasn't planned at all, but of course I went for Connor McDavid. I mean, it's a pretty fair choice, you know. I think it was good. So so the one reason I wanted to talk about this specifically is, one, Chris, I want you to take a look at your roster and see if there's any players that you're a bit annoyed that you either picked or it auto-picked for you. And then after we answer that, I want to have a prize for the winner of the Fantasy League. And I've got a few ideas, but I'd like to hear what you guys think in the chat. But first of all, Chris, your players. Who do you wish you had picked?
It's loading.
Okay.
I'm pleased with the players that I picked. There's a couple of players who went literally like a couple of picks before, and I was like, oh, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
But I need to have a look at my roster and maybe do a couple of bits from free agency.
Sure. Yeah, there's going to be some decent players available.
Yeah, well, I was looking at my roster and looking on the news section. Here we go. Right, where's my roster news? So I've got Pasternak, Gaudreau, Nylander, who again, hasn't been.
I was very interested with that pick when you made that.
Yeah,
and of course, for the reasons we just explained.
Yeah, the one that really got me was... Where is it? Oh, when it automatically did Paul Martin for me, who was unconditionally waived on Friday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't realise you picked Paul Martin. Yeah,
I didn't. The computer
did.
Paul
Martin he was signed to quite a big contract with the Sharks. They waived him last year. I'm pretty sure he spent the year in the AHL because the problem is he's on like a $5 million a season contract. and they're wanting to
Yeah.
like reduce the amount that they have to pay him as much as possible because he's not producing at like he's not at the level that they signed him at. So yeah, and now that they've got Carlson, they definitely don't have a need for Paul Martin anymore. So
No. So
yeah,
like I say,
you might want to make some moves there.
yeah, that's what I'm going to do. But that's my squad anyway.
Nice. So with my squad specifically, I have Connor McDavid, Joe Pavelski, Wayne Simmons, Jonathan Huberdeau, Dylan Larkin, Kevin Hayes, Eric Howler, Alex Kerfoot, Vladimir Tarasenko. They're my forwards. Eric Carlson, Torrey Krug, Josh Manson, Esa Lindell, and Eric Johnson as my defense. Got Thomas Tatar as my utility player. Philip Keitel, Armia, Sven Bertsky, and Geordie Ben as my bench players. And then I have Dubnik, Ranta, and Reimer as my goaltenders. Now, the only thing that I'm a little bit annoyed about is the fact that I didn't draft a goalie earlier. I think I got a decent pickup with Devin Dubnik. He's a solid goaltender. Of course, it will depend on how well Minnesota play this season as to whether he ends up being a good choice for me. But I could see myself making a trade in the future for a better goaltender. Ranta's a bit of a high risk, potentially high reward choice there. Reimer's a pretty solid goaltender. I'm quite happy with him. He'll put up he'll get some decent wins, of course, because he's sharing the crease with Roberto Luongo. So he'll get a lot of games in there as Luongo gets either injured or older and more tired as games go on. So I think I went with sort of sleeper picks for my goaltenders. So I'm hoping they work out nicely. But just in case you were wondering, Chris, I've got the list of the top available players, free agency wise.
Yeah,
so
go on. It'll be something to do in my lunch break tomorrow.
Yeah. So the top goalies available are Cam Ward, Scott Darling, and Robin Lehner. So I wouldn't really go for any of them, to be honest. Very, very. Well, they're kind of low risk, potentially high reward. But the problem is they take up a roster spot, and they're not. Scott Darling had an awful season last year. He might end up doing well, but he had a pretty awful year last year. Robin Lehner, I might do a video on him recently because there's some interesting stuff that's come out about him. I'd like to do a video on that. I think it's quite important for a few reasons. And Cam Ward, he's just sucked since they won the cup with Carolina, pretty much.
Quite.
The top available forwards are Ryan Donato, Valeri Nikushkin, and Jacob Vrana. Nikushkin's going to be an interesting one, coming back from the KHL after spending 2 years there. So a former first-round pick of the Dallas Stars. Let's see if he works out for them. Top available centres, Ryan Donato, Jacob Vrana, and Robbie Fabry. Available left wingers, Jacob Vrana, Zykov, and Christian Dvorak. Available right wingers, Nikushkin, Yamamoto, and Pulyavi. And the top available defensemen, TJ Brody, Brady Shea, and Nikita Zadorov. So there's some interesting players. I might actually go and pick up Brady Shea. I'm not too sure. I'm quite happy with
I'll definitely go and have a look.
Yeah, definitely, because Brady Shea will definitely get either a top 2 or a top 4 pairing this season. That might be a good sleeper pick as well. Somebody's probably already gone and tried to pick him up now. But there you go. So, yeah, fantasy is very interesting. Our fantasy league, of course, we need to make sure we remember it in 2 weeks' time. Because otherwise we're not going to be able to... Because that's when the season starts. Max's team is the team that has the bye week for week 1, which is quite interesting. I don't get any bye weeks, and I think there's a couple of other teams that don't get bye weeks. And I think I play you, Chris, just after New Year is when I'm up against you.
I can't remember, but yeah, fine.
Yeah, I took a look at it last night.
Yeah, I didn't.
So, yeah, now I'm going to move on. This is just a quick topic to kind of finish off the episode before we take a few questions. Or a few topics that you guys want to chat about.
Like I say, because I don't know the KHL, so I'll drop out.
Sure.
And
do you want to stay for the questions? Or
keep the questions coming in. If they're short.
I'm just going to do quickly about the KHL. It's not a huge amount of time. It's just because I keep relatively up to date with it because I like watching SK St. Petersburg because I've got Pavel Datsuk on their roster. So with the KHL at the moment, most teams are about 6 or 7 games into the season. It's a very interesting scenario going on there. Of course, the team that won the league last year was AK Bars Kazan. They won the playoffs, the Gagarin Cup, which is the playoff championship. And SK St. Petersburg won the regular season. They got the most points in the year. They had like a 25-game winning streak. They played fantastically. So yeah, it's been very interesting though, because SK St. Petersburg, they've won 3 of their first 6 games. And AK Bars Kazan have won 2 of their first 7 games. although they've got a couple of shootout losses, and they've got a shootout win as well. So they've won 3 of their first 7 games, one of which in a shootout or overtime, and SK St. Petersburg have won 4 of their first 6 games. So a very interesting scenario going there. They're 5th and 8th place in their conferences, respectively. Currently at the top of the KHL are Jokerit in the Western Conference and Lokomotiv. Jokerit have won 6 games and lost 1 in overtime. That overtime loss came to SK St. Petersburg. 13 points in 7 games for Jokerit. And in the East, Avto Mobilist have won 6 games and won 1 in overtime. So they are still undefeated currently this season. Avantgarde, who have a lot of ex-NHL players, they've got 5 wins in their first 6 games. Metallurg Magnitogorsk have 5 wins in their first 8 games. So some very interesting scenarios there, and I think if you're interested in a league that's kind of more talented than the Elite Ice Hockey League, that's more to our time zone than the NHL, and has more talent keyed up with the NHL, it's kind of the step down from the NHL. The KHL is a good league to follow, actually. There's a lot of players' names that you might recognise if you've been following the NHL for quite a while. In England, you can literally buy a game to watch for 99 pence. Like, you can pick a game and buy it for 99 pence. The problem is Russian commentary, so I have no idea what they're talking about. But you can.
That's alright. I'll just do it,
or not listen to it. Yeah, exactly.
I'll just voice over.
So it's like 99 pence. It's literally like a quid to watch a game, and it's usually it's like 2-3 hours ahead for most of the games compared to us. So it's like you can have a nice mid to late afternoon hockey game with like Pavel Datsuk and Nikita Gusev and Sergei Plotnikov playing on your lineup, who are all ex-NHLers or former first, second round picks in the NHL. Of course, Ilya Kovalchuk used to play for SKA St. Petersburg. He's now gone back to the Kings. So that kind of shows you the calibre of players that they've got there. But yeah, that's just my quick bit about the KHL. I think it's a really interesting league. I'd be interested to see more British people getting involved in it and seeing what they like about the KHL and seeing if it's their cup of tea. If not, doesn't matter. But yeah, so there's...
Yeah,
so,
I'll definitely look into it.
Of course. So
go on. No, go on.
So essentially, the whole bit about that was the what's it called? The 2 finalists in the playoffs last year have had a bit of a slow start to the season. There's some teams that I wouldn't have expected to be sitting at the top of the league, currently sitting at the top of the league. But of course, they've played less than 10 games so far. We're in very early days for most teams this season, as you could imagine. So
yeah. I mean, you're always going to have that this time of year. Is you're going to be, well, you've played 2 games. It's a bit early to talk about form. And the majority of these, I mean, there's obviously other hockey podcasts about, but none as good as this one. And they're all about talking about trades and just speculating, because obviously nothing's really happened.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing about the off season, especially. Like, we don't really do much trade speculation. We don't really do much speculation in general. I don't think on this podcast, which I quite like, because most of it's just rumours and stuff, and most of them don't end up being true. I think what I quite like about this podcast is the fact that we give the news and we give all the we give the facts, and then we give our opinion, and we have a bit of a laugh while we do it, and we try to make it as fun and exciting as possible.
Yeah, like those 5 words.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's something that the Elite Ice Hockey League tweeted out today, and we were just like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? Let's do our own version. So
okay, so some questions.
Yeah, do some questions. We can answer some questions we'll answer a couple of quick fire questions, and I think we'll call that a podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so Andy says thoughts on the ECHL as a whole.
Interesting. The East Coast Hockey League. I'll go first if you don't mind.
Yeah, go on.
So they're one of the leagues that I hear the name a lot, but I don't know a huge amount about.
Yeah, the same.
The most I hear about the East Coast Hockey League is players coming from the East Coast Hockey League to the Elite Ice Hockey League. So I assume that they're very similar in terms of the talent pool, considering we draw a lot of players from the East Coast Hockey League, and we've had, for example, Evan Mosey went and played for the East Coast Hockey League 2 seasons ago. So we have players that are of that caliber. What would be quite cool, actually, I think, is to see a preseason game between an East Coast team and an EIHL team. That would be quite interesting, just to sort of see where we match up with that sort of league.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
I find their nicknames for their teams very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Some of them are very weird, like the Swamp Rabbits. I remember hearing that one. That's a strange one. I think Brandon Halverson used to play for them.
Well, I mean, that's a name that strikes fear into the hearts of the opposition there.
It's like I'm up against the Storm, the Lightning, the Steelers, the Swamp Rabbits. You know, like, that's what I thought when they announced the name Golden Knights. I was like, what is this, an East Coast league? Like, what's going on? I mean, I like it now, but it's just like, it's one of those things. Maybe I'd be the same with the ECHL. Maybe I'd be like, no, I do quite like that. That works quite nicely. It's interesting.
Right. Kales Bro.
How's it going, bud?
He says, which team do you think will be the top team and bottom team in the NHL and the EIHL?
Okay.
Right, if we start with the EIHL, because I still have the predictions here from last week's podcast.
Hey, good.
So, top team in the Elite League, I went with the Panthers, and Hayden went with the Giants, but really he thinks the Panthers.
I mean, both choices I think are good so far. My official choice, still haven't lost a game so far. Just saying.
Yeah, and the bottom team, I went with Glasgow. You also thought Glasgow, but you've gone with Coventry. So that's the EIHL. The NHL, again, it's not even started, so it's.
I mean, I've got some guesses. I'd like a little bit of clarification on this question, Kales Bro. Are we talking regular season, so the number 1 team after the regular season, the President's Trophy winner, and
Good point,
the number 31 team? Or are we talking like the team that wins
Stanley
the
Cup winner, yeah,
and the team that's 31st? So I think there's different answers to those questions. There always is. Like the amount of times the President's Trophy winner has won the Stanley Cup is actually quite minuscule.
31st may well be Arizona again.
No. I'd say they're 30th.
Okay. Again, I've not been...
Montreal are definitely 31st.
Really? Okay.
Montreal have an awful roster this season.
Regular season, okay.
They traded away Patches, who's
True.
their only goal scorer. And they don't have any centres. They've got loads of wingers, some of which can maybe score a few goals, most of which can't. And they have Carey Price. Carey Price will steal them 15, 20 games this season by himself. But after that, you're on your own. If Price gets injured again, they are definitely going to be... Oh, that's a good point, actually. Ottawa. Oh, yeah. I think the bottom 3 are going to be Arizona, Montreal, Ottawa.
Oof, tough, yeah. I don't know. I'd have to do some more looking into it. Same, I think, Felix. Who do you think will be the best breakout player or player bust in the NHL? Again, if we look into it a bit and do that next week, maybe.
I have one for a bust player potentially. But just to answer the rest of Kalesborough's question, top in the regular season.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I'm going to go with Tampa. I think Tampa could win the President's Trophy.
Yeah, that was going to be mine.
Another good choice, San Jose, obviously, now that they've got Carlson.
Yes.
Washington are probably a good pick as well.
Yeah.
The New York Rangers, obviously.
No.
The Maple Leafs, I mean, I don't think they'll hit President's Trophy, but they could be up there.
I think they'll be playoffs again, but I don't think they'll be near the Presidents.
They need better defense, but other than that, they're rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Who do you think will be the breakout player/player bust in the NHL? So my potential player bust, you could summarize it to a whole team. This is kind of going off my initial guess. You could just say the entire Vegas Golden Knights roster from last year. Like you could potentially say that.
Yeah, because the expectation is going to be so high, isn't it?
Exactly. Whilst I don't think that will be the case, I think a player that could potentially be a bust this year or not live up to the hype from last season is William Karlsson. He scored 40 goals last season. It was his first season where he'd scored more than 6 or 8 goals in a season. He had a massive jump in his production last season. Will that continue? I don't know. I mean, for Vegas' sake, it'd be great if it did. But does he even out as a 20, 30 goal scorer? I think Vegas would be happy with that. They've got Pacioretty as well, so if he had a 20, 30 goal season, problem solved. They've got their goal scoring from multiple players. And then Jonathan Marchessault, add him to the list. He can put up some points for you. But yeah, I think the Vegas Golden Knights roster from last year is going to be very interesting. In terms of a breakout player this season, going from my experience, I would probably say there's a couple of New York Rangers players that might be able to break out this season. Having a new coach with who's used to working with younger players. We've got a lot of younger players on our roster. I think Brady Shea could break out. He could be a top 2 defenseman this year. He's kind of already shown signs of that, but I think he'll be a more complete player this season. I think Philip Keetle for the New York Rangers could break out as well. He's got a very high upside offensively with his potential. Whether that happens or not this season, I'm not sure. I don't know. A breakout player that's not from my team, because I kind of want to be as impartial as possible. I don't know.
Again, it's a look into it thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Rasmus Dahlin could have a solid year, though. I think Rasmus Dahlin could have an incredible season. If he's treated correctly. He looks like he's going to be a solid defenseman. Yeah, that's where I sit on that. So I think we've got time for one last question. So if anybody has a question that they want to shoot our way, feel free.
Get it in quick. Be the first.
Because I'm planning on, once this stream ends, I'm going to look at seeing if I can get these podcasts on Spotify.
Have you set the custom emojis up yet?
No, not quite, because the image quality of the images need to be less than 1 megabyte big. So
right.
I'm in the process.
I want the custom emojis now that Felix has joined.
We'll make them happen. Oh my god. So yeah, for a second episode of the Icing on the Skate, I feel like this has gone alright. I mean, Chris missed half of it, but other than that, it's been pretty good.
Missed half of it because the laptop won't work, and there was one interruption, but that was only a doorbell this time.
So what have we learnt today, Chris? Make sure you update Skype before the podcast.
Some of us were out until about 6:30.
Well, fair enough. I was sitting there playing video games, and then I went and ate my dinner and was like, I should probably set up for the podcast, shouldn't I? I was a little bit late as well, to be fair.
Some of us have jobs and stuff, you know.
Oh, well, some of us make free videos for all of you guys that you get to watch whenever you want. I earn like 3 pence on them. Not everyone has a good life, right, Chris?
Apart from that silver medal scandal one. There's more than 3 pence on that.
That got me some money! I like that one. I really enjoyed this. Look forward to next week. Oh, and also, I'm hoping to get some different graphics sorted out for the background for the next week. They are in production. They were almost ready for this episode, but we had a few issues in terms of like the scaling and stuff. I've got somebody else on them, Chris. Don't worry. I thought I'd save you a job. There you go.
That's for considering these graphics are the ones that I put together on PowerPoint in about 5 minutes.
PowerPoint, the cause of and solution to all of my problems. Okay, so that was the second episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast for the 18-19 season.
Yep.
Next week,
EJ Freeston. It's the Great Britain national squad during the World Championships.
Let's go to Slovakia, Chris. But yeah, so the next picture will just be your head zooming in and out. Love it. Watch the podcast. So, yeah, I think we'll call it a stream there. Next week will be the 24th of September. We will be 3 weeks into the Elite League, and we will be 1 week away from the NHL season starting. So a lot of interesting stuff coming up. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, all of that stuff. Hopefully I'll get everything sorted on Spotify soon. But thanks for watching, and goodbye. Bye, Chris.
See ya.